Hey everybody, welcome back. My name is Anna from Astral Tarot, and today I'm very excited to do this video that I announced a week ago, was it? I think so. I am revisiting an old tag. This was not originally a tag, but everybody started doing VRs to it, to Kelly Bear's What Are Your Top 5 Tarot Decks. I did this 3 years ago, something like that. Anyway, I hope everybody is doing really well, and yes, I'm excited to do this, but also it's kind of a laid back, relaxing energy over here because I finally have a day off. I had to plan it and I'm still working. Anyway, I really want to do this because some things have changed, but also 3 years ago, I predicted that 3 out of the 5 I mentioned at the time, plus one because we always have to break rules a little bit with these tags, right? With these tarot tags. 3 out of the 5 would still be in the top 5, would remain in the top 5. So, did I predict this accurately? I simply want to tell you about it. Now, I know that at the moment, more tarot folks who make videos online are trying to have engaging conversations about actual tarot, not just showing decks. You know what I mean? And I'm all for that. I truly hope that you come to my channel to have these conversations about actual tarot while still here and there enjoying tarot imagery, of course. And I certainly hope that whenever I make a video like this one, where I talk about decks that I love and imagery that I love, I still am able to convey to you this message of you do not need to buy this deck. This is a relationship, a special relationship that I have to this deck, and that we are still talking about systems that mean a lot to me, tarot systems, and why this imagery really works for me, and that it's not so much of a sales pitch or a commercial. That's not what this is about. It's really, I hope that this comes across, tarot appreciation, so that we can still talk about decks and unboxings and things like those while still appreciate it for what it truly is, the craft of reading cards. Really what I'm trying to do, make the content that I wish to see. So also the channels that I watch, it's not just flip throughs. Whenever someone is unboxing or doing a first impressions or even a review, which is actually something different, I really like it when they get into the reading aspect. How does a deck read and why is it so important to you? Other than, more superficial things like gilding and cardstock and wow, what a beautiful artwork in the card. But does it work for you? Does it convey a message? So basically, that's what I hope to do for you today with this top 5, because it's actually really just 5 decks. And I know the people who aren't new here, who view my videos on a regular basis, it still sounds so weird, but for the people who do that, you will definitely be able to guess probably 4 out of the 5. But because I will be talking about it in this more in-depth way, the goal of this video is still to talk about why I love these decks and not just show them to you. I will do my best to describe what these decks mean to me as a reader, why they are in my top 5, and how I feel throughout the years that this top 5 really is solidifying more and more. Because you see, I am talking about tarot staples. I'm talking about my main decks, my mood decks, my go-tos and weirdos. But I'm starting really to see here that yeah, it's kind of unfolding before me, you might say, that these decks, they really represent pieces of me. It's weird. It's my personality, my life, what I like, what attracts me, my values, my pursuits. Definitely. So let's start with the big no surprise here, and everybody knows it because I'm by now known on TarotTube for this deck. Everybody sees this as my deck. Le Triomphe de la Lune Paradoxical. Yeah, and we're talking the good old Marseille edition. This is an independently published deck by Patrick Valenza. I always keep it in this box. By now, 3 years later, I have different versions of this deck. I used to have just this one, right? At the time it was edged in blue, and now I re-edged it in this blue, in this black, I mean, with different hues. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, and I also had this backup copy that I ordered a few months, I think, or maybe a year after working with this copy, because I had just simply realized that it was my favorite deck and independently published. It might go out of print, and it did for longest time, and now it's back. So yeah, really happy with all of that. Can you believe it? I now have, so I still use this one because this is my main one, right? Then I have the backup copy that I never use. I just keep it for if anything, knock on wood, would happen to this one. Then I received the purple edition. I received the blue edition. I also received from Patrick Valenza himself this expansion pack with extra cards and the beast pack. And later on, I think it was earlier this year, the new paradoxical classic Marseille. So some cards, it's hard to see which way is up with Marseille systems, right? And so he fixed that by adding in some extra faces. For instance, here, this is the old Three of Wands, no faces. And what you get to see here is this weird flesh-eating plant with a drop. I always think of acid, so that it becomes more of a different type of trip, this adventure card. But in this new version that people can purchase now, trying to not make it into an ad, but just so you know, that there's this face so that you can easily spot, because this is an easy read, Marseille, right? You can easily spot which way is up. And of course, let's not forget, I also now have the paradoxical illustrated version, which is not in my favorite decks. I don't actually use it. I really, to be honest, just have it because how cool is it to have a completely different version of your favorite deck? It's Rider-Waite-Smith based, and this one, of course, is Marseille. And so I don't know, it's incredible, wouldn't it? It's, yeah. I still can't believe that that's actually a thing. So yeah, no surprise here, right? This deck also had a main role in my disheveled decks video, and you can see it all the time on my channel. So, and I read with it all the time for clients, for myself. Oh, the smell of this deck is just freaking beautiful. And so there's a lot of history there. I really know this deck, and let me tell you quickly what I see in it, why I love this so much. First of all, this is the deck I learned Marseille system with, and I'm half French. So it wasn't the regular Marseille, the classic Marseille, that attracted me. It was definitely this deck. When I saw this deck, I thought with the black backgrounds, amazing, and it lights up under black light, the witchiest deck I've ever seen. So aesthetically, I love it. And then there's also more approachable court cards, even more approachable major arcana, I would say. Every card tells a story, and there is some satire going on there and some humor going on there, and still you can really place yourself in these creatures. Now, what I see in them, since everything is inverted in the color palettes, and then also, of course, Patrick has this creepy art style, everything is just a little bit off. It's just a little bit different. And so when I look at this deck, or rather enter the world of this deck, the very special realm, I enter the underworld. It's as if I enter a very friendly type of hellscape almost. All of these little demons, little creatures of the underworld, are my friends because I'm one of them and I am welcomed into their realm of the night, the place where it's always night, but still it's so very friendly and welcoming. So really, it embraces this huge part of me of being a little bit of the outcast, misfit, underdog, all of that, which I really have learned to embrace more. Because you might say that I'm not enough of a misfit to hang out with the misfits, so even there I'm a misfit. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? That's just the story of my life. And so really, this is definitely giving me this, it's okay to be who you are, while still challenging me. So yes. And I love the non-scenic pips because they're very easy to read this way. There's much more going on in every card than in regular Marseille, which by now I also like to read. But still, this one will always be, this untraditional Marseille will always be my favorite Marseille because so many memories and just that whole idea, it's just perfect for me. I talk about this deck all the time. Second deck, yeah, let's actually mix it up, show you a deck that wasn't in my top 5 3 years ago, because at the time I had no idea of the existence of this amazing, wonderful, crazy, ugly deck. It's Crow's Magic Tarot, everybody. This is a box I made for it, just like the other one, by the way, but I pulled this card today. In case you want to know which day I filmed this one on, you can check out Instagram. I made a post. So, this is a pip deck, not a Marseille, but it has definite crow energy, even though there are hardly any real crows in this old school computer collage artwork by Londa Marks. This deck is out of print, but you can still find it, and some cool things are happening with it. Okay, Crow's Magic is friends with Triunfo della Luna. In case you hadn't noticed, there's a theme here. The black backgrounds or dark backgrounds. This one is much warmer toned and therefore gives me more of sort of entity that I work with, because deity isn't the right word. Entity that I personally work with. I hear her voice through this deck. Even though it's still just a regular tarot deck to me, it is my first and so far only dedicated tarot deck. And yes, I love it. I'm getting excited. Okay, so this deck has so much that I don't like, right? The super white borders, but I'm gonna leave them. The big double, yes, actually double copyright there. Like, people, we get it. Then there's the astrological signs that also doesn't even really make sense these days. And then the big keywords over there. But that actually really helps to read this deck intuitively. Now, confession, this is not a main deck. I can still not and will probably never really be able to mentally flip through it because I don't study it. And I just have a very different relationship to this deck than I have to, yeah, actually all the other decks. So this is, I wouldn't call this a favorite deck. It is my top 5 favorite deck, but I would call Triunfo della Luna my favorite deck, and this one perhaps my soul deck. I love this anthropomorphic figures, and I get so much out of it, even though who would have thought I would ever think this is a good tarot deck? This is far from a classic. I I hate this type of computer artwork, but apparently when I saw a few of these cards online just randomly, my heart, I think, skipped a beat. It pulled me towards it. It said, "You have to work with this deck." And I still don't really know what it is, but that voice was strong and it's very true. And perhaps this deck even helped me to find this relationship to this entity. It's been really magical. Magic with a K. It speaks to me on this level that I do not comprehend. It's more than just intuition to me. Some outside force is talking to me, even when it is just a tarot deck. It's dreamy, it's cosmic, it's its own system, even though there are some clear influences from major systems I like to work with. I don't know what else to say. Okay, let's revert back to a deck that was definitely in my top 5 and will never leave. It's my very first system, the Rider-Waite-Smith, everybody. So this is, I would say this is the main deck I use for clients still, or this system at least. This is the Centennial Tarot deck, and it's the same that you saw 3 years ago. Um, yeah, this is also in my disheveled decks. I love it. What can I say about this without boring you? Sometimes all you want is a good old classic Pamela Coleman Smith Rider-Waite. Am I right? There's just so much still to see. I don't see this as a beginner deck, even though this was, of course, my beginner deck. It's very esoteric. There is always something new to find in the cards or connections with the cards. You know, the scenic pips really do work in a different way. It's not just directional reading, as we do with the Marseille systems. It's not just elementally. We actually get to see a scene depicted. And that is what makes this deck just so powerful. What else can I say? And I actually like these cards because for the longest time, and I feel I always say this when I talk about the Rider-Waite-Smith, for the longest time, these were the tarot cards in my mind. I only knew this. Even before I read tarot or became interested in it, I thought of somebody mentioned tarot, and I would think of these images. Because we are more exposed, I think, to these images than we are to other systems, at least in Holland, in the Netherlands. This is why it's such a good deck. Also, you know, it's a blessing and a curse, I guess. Whenever we read with another deck, there's a big chance upon pulling the Two of Wands, we have this card in mind, this image in mind. We have to break, I think, that habit sometimes, break the Rider-Waite-Smith habit. That was an old video made by Secret Seed, I think, L, uh, at some point. And I believe in that, definitely, because it doesn't exactly mean the same thing, right? In Marseille doesn't exactly mean the same thing in Rider-Waite-Smith. Yet, I still believe that there is this one tarot system that we can make for ourselves. It's experiential knowledge, knowing what the Seven of Swords means to you because you actually have experienced that card, that energy, and it might have surprised you, right? What it actually means to you. And then there's just always the fact that this is my oldest deck and I still love it to this day because I still see the value in it. And I still absolutely reach it a lot. A lot, guys. It's this very valuable tool to make sense of things. Because a Rider-Waite-Smith reading is pretty much always going to be very clear to me, since this was the system I learned the tarot with. This was definitely my first peek into what tarot actually is. And yeah, amazing for clients. I mean, By now, I read with pretty much all my decks for clients, but I'm talking face-to-face readings at the store. Absolutely iconic. And it's okay if you don't like the Rider-Waite-Smith, but to me, this will always be a treasure. Okay, so a deck that has quickly made its way into the top 5 is a new deck. This did not come up 3 years ago because it didn't exist at the time. The Ritual Tarot by Tiara May. So I consider this beautiful analog collage deck, here's the back of the box, as very similar in a weird way to my Crow's Magic and Triomphe della Luna. Somehow I feel in this warm earth deck, since I did make an in-depth review on how this deck reads, I see a type of darkness still, or a type of, I don't know, feeling different. Somehow this deck to me brings up a lot of music. um, yeah, it's weird. It's as if it's imbibed with music, all of this imagery. I love history. I love this nature that we see, parts of our beautiful earth. I love history that we will never be able to uncover anymore. You know, I love the mystery about it, history and mystery. And this deck really just absolutely speaks to me. I love it. I fell in love. And this is the second edition. It doesn't have any borders or titles or numbers, which makes it very free. And I really like that because it's so different from the other ones, right? Even though somehow I feel there's definitely a red thread. In case you don't know, by the way, the type of music I tend to hear when I listen to this deck, I guess, when I read with this deck, is rock and roll type because that's what I like. But going back to in this deck, every card is the nameless arcanum, you might say. It gives so much freedom in how you read the card, right? Because you can look at it fully intuitively. After all, it's just an image. A beautiful collage made by Tiara May, by the way. This is an independently published deck, which is currently being sold, by the way. You can also switch up the suits, for instance. You can read it intuitively, you can read it as a Rider-Waite-Smith, you can read it numerologically, you can use astrology, it's anything that you want. And what I do as well is you can switch up the suits. Now, I switch up the name of the suits. For instance, here we see 5 of Swords, and in the guidebook you will definitely see written down 5 of Swords, but they don't really feel like swords to me, and I like that this deck allows us to bring our own meaning or title, name. So to me, this would be 5 of Daggers. The sword suit became daggers, right? Sometimes. These pentacles, discs, coins are coins to me. Well, cups, still cups. And where are our wands? Okay, here we go. 2 of Wands is 2 of Spears. Tarot is so much about the name, right? So maybe I shouldn't be messing with it, but it works with this deck. Because Daggers and Spears brings me something else than Swords and Wands. I know it's the same, but still, daggers, it's meant to point and hurt, right? And then spears, it's very focused. You have a goal. So either way, to me, it totally makes sense. And then just look at the beautiful dreaminess of these majors. I mean, I love a good maximalist deck. This would be the Fool. And it's just an overall yes for me. I did not think I was going to have a collage deck in my top 5, or even in my collection at some point. But here it is, and I'm very grateful for it. It reads like an old friend. It reads straight out of the box for me. I think you can notice I don't really like the minimalism. I love it when there's a lot going on in the card, but at the same time, I want it to look like a tarot card, and that's what this deck does to me, together with, so far, all the other, actually all these ones. All these cards, all these decks to me look like tarot cards. Why? Because the artist at the time of making the artwork was considerate enough to really think about the composition of the card, and not just, as I sometimes see in maybe more recent collage decks, that all the images are just kind of slapped on there. And I mean, to each his own, absolutely. But I'm just saying, this is why I like this one over other ones. And just the whole implementing older statues and ancient sites, and yes, I just love it. It's, I fell in love, and it's just one of those decks that it's a true friendship. You know what I mean? Ah, last one, last but not least. This one was in my top 5. And 3 years ago, I went, yes, actually, this deck, why not? Why not? Because at the time, nobody was talking about this system, the Toth deck, everybody. My greenie. Oh boy, this is a vintage greenie with the green hue, right? It comes from a white box from 83, I think. So it's extra green. This one is very sharp. I actually had to open it from the cellophane and everything. Okay, this blew my mind for so long, and it still does. Extremely cosmic deck. Thank you, Aleister Crowley, and thank you, Lady Frida Harris, for coming together and making this amazing deck. I might sound the most excited about this deck, but that's not true. I'm excited about all of these. But I just want to emphasize that 3 years ago, nobody was talking about Toth. Or it was just kind of starting, you know, to become a thing. And then within, I don't know, maybe a year, people who had sworn they would never stray away from Rider-Waite-Smith or absolutely fully scenic pips, all of a sudden were trying out the Toth system. And for quite a few people, it did change some things, right? I can tell you. Oh my gosh. Okay, look at this moon card. I can tell you all of these beautiful cosmic layered major arcana changed the way I saw the majors, changed the way I related to the cards. Because Rider-Waite-Smith, you look in the Empress eyes, and yes, you know it's a cosmic energy, but you don't really see it. It looks like it's very earthy still. I mean, that makes sense for Empress, right? But looking at the Toth Empress, you're taken out of this world into something spiritual. So just the artwork alone, I'm trying to say, it's of another world. It immediately looks and feels huge. Also, studying Toth system, and by the way, Book of Toth is probably at this point the only tarot book that I am willing to read over and over and over again, front to back, because it's so cool. Enough about that. Lord of Strife, okay. All of these Aleister Crowley, but really MacGregor Mathers titles, esoteric titles, have made me understand each and every card in a different way. That is truly when the whole, all the different tarot systems are one spectrum really became a thing. Because so far I had all the weird decks that have their own systems. And then I had Rider-Waite-Smith, very clear system to me. Marseille, also very clear system. Adding Toth. Toth is just a Tothified Marseille, am I right? Toth, you might even say, could be seen as a mix of Marseille and Rider-Waite-Smith, plus a little bit of Crowley Thelema madness. I was trying to say that the Toth deck, studying this system, made me understand what I've been previously working with way better, because it brought this weird It's so weird that this knowledge isn't more present in Rider-Waite-Smith books. Why aren't we talking about Lord of Indolence in the Eight of Cups? It's about understanding indolence. That's how I like to see this deck. Understanding strife. What does that mean to you? And so we look at the Five of Wands in the Rider-Waite-Smith, for instance. It's the same esoteric title. We're still talking about Lord of Strife with the Five of Wands of the Rider-Waite-Smith. Do I just have Rider-Waite-Smith books that refuse to talk about anything that has to do with, I don't know, OTO or Golden Dawn? I don't know. I thought I had pretty good Rider-Waite-Smith books, like Mythic Tarot guidebook. It's still one of my favorites after all these years. I know, right? Long story short, Crowley deck helped me understand the tarot more, seeing it even more as a whole, seeing it even more as the book of life. All the connections. And I don't even use all of them in readings. I still don't use astrology. Let me actually show you the cards. I still don't really use the Tree of Life, the Kabbalistic Tree of Life, all that much. Hey, there you go. You know, I still read tarot in the way I read tarot. But yeah, you guys know the Toth deck blew my mind, and it still does. 3 years ago, this was a bit of a wild card, you might say, even though I was already getting super into this. Yes, fair to say, it is here to stay. Yeah, you guys know by now, I think. My three main systems are Rider-Waite-Smith, Tarot de Marseille, Toth. I will never not look for vintage, you know, first edition Llewellyn of this one, the muddy colors, but truly the greeny. Oh, I really like any Toth deck by now because I fell in love. You can't not, I think. But still, this deck is the most beautiful out of all the Toth decks I've seen. I'm very lucky. It's a lucky green, you know? All of these decks mean so much to me. I really truly hope I explained enough about every single deck and why they are in my top 5. Now, it's really hard for me to put actual classification, like this is my number 1, this is my number 2, this is my number 3. All I know is that these 5, they are friends, they are family, they are my tarot practice, they are me, and they are all part of this core. So top 5 tarot decks are my core decks. That's what it feels like now at the moment. So all I want to know is what you guys think of this. I know there was no surprise, but in case you're new here, let me know in the comments so I can properly welcome you here, and you can actually then let me know what you think of all of these decks, because it's for you, it would be the first time you'll hear me talking about these. And of course, plenty of videos will be linked in the screen so that you can hear me talk some more about them or do some weird tarot experiment with them, I don't know. But yeah, let me just quickly, before I leave, revert back to the video 3 years ago. In my top 5 there, I had 2 plus 1, but we're not talking about the plus 1, okay? I had 2 other decks instead of the crows, instead of the ritual, because those decks I did not know of their existence at the time. I had 2 other decks which I really definitely enjoyed for what they were, for what they are. I still have them in my collection. I do not see those leaving at all because they have a very special place in my collection. But now that I'm expanding a little bit more and seeing what I like and what is truly a part of me, you know, crazy decks and all, I'm really fine-tuning what my taste and needs, most of all, and pursuits, as I said, truly are. So, do I really truly pursue the world that is depicted in those 2 decks? Maybe not. Maybe not so much. Or, oh, that is so true. Okay. Actually, these 2 new ones replaced those old ones. So, go ahead and watch the old video if you're into it, and come back to this one and then let me know what you think, which deck was replaced by the Ritual Tarot and which deck was replaced by the Crow's Magic Tarot. That will be our game this week. I thank you so much for being here, and I would say don't leave yet. I know I just gave you an assignment to go ahead and watch my top 5, but I will also link another video in the screen in case you don't feel like watching that one. You can still stick around and see if you like anything that I might talk about in this particular video. So thanks so much for being here, and I really want to hear from you in the comment section, okay? I will be present there. So let me know. And it was actually somehow a weird kind of a relief to just talk about the decks that I love most. How nice. So thanks again, in very much hindsight, Kelly Bear, for starting this at some point. And I will see you all next week. Bye.